Language is a fundamental concept in linguistics, but in reality, few people really know what it is. We could describe it simply as a structured system of communication using speech, writing, or sign. But that's too simple. The first thing you need to realize is that only human beings possess the ability for language. No animal or other creature possesses this ability. Language is the universal, innate ability to communicate that is unique to human beings. But if you think about this for a few seconds and try to come up with a counterexample, you might think of a parrot. After all, parrots do talk, don't they? They are capable of repeating words to us, yet they're not human, are they? Well, this is because language is often defined by 5 key criteria that distinguish it from animal communication. Firstly, there's reflexivity. This is the language ability to talk about language itself. It's quite a meta concept, and it is a fundamental aspect of the capacity for language. Next, we have displacement. This is the ability to talk about things that are not present, such as the future or the past, or even the imaginary. For example, talking about Superman. Superman isn't real, yet we can describe him and talk about him. And before continuing with this list, I'm going to pause to highlight a detail that the most perceptive amongst you may have noticed. This ability to refer to things that are not present is actually not unique to human beings. The most common example is likely bees. Bees are capable of dancing in a unique way that allows them to communicate to other bees about things that are far away, things that are not immediately present, but also in terms of time. For example, a bee finds a field of flowers full of pollen. It returns to the hive and tells the others, "Hey, I found a field of flowers a few minutes ago. It's several hundred yards away." The bee is talking about the past and about something that is not immediate. Does this mean that bees have the capacity for language too? Well, no. In fact, the 5 characteristics of language must be combined to form this capacity for language. Language is a combination of these 5 characteristics at the same time, which distinguish it from simple animal communication. So, let's go back to this list as we've only talked about 2 of the elements so far. The third characteristic is arbitrariness. That is, the ability to establish a relationship between a word and an object. Next, we have productivity. This is the ability to create an infinite number of sentences or even words. Finally, there is cultural transmission. That is to say, the ability to pass on language from one generation to the next. This is quite remarkable because it shows that without the transmission of language to children, they may not acquire the language ability to its fullest potential. A famous example is the case of Jeannie, a young girl whose father never spoke to her for several years, from a very early age. Well, Jeannie's story is much more tragic than that, and I won't go into the details here, but you should know that she was only exposed to a spoken language after several years, which limited her ability to learn to speak. And this is where we see that the capacity for language extends beyond spoken languages to include sign languages. Every characteristic of language applies to both spoken and sign languages. Finally, to conclude on the concept of language, we're going to talk about a linguist who, among other things, revolutionized linguistics, Ferdinand de Saussure. This is because he was responsible for establishing the concept of langue, langage, and parole. And these words in French are usually synonyms, so we just saw what language is. But how does it differ from langue and parole? Because langue is the French word for a language. And here it's not the ability of language, but rather the individual language, like French, Spanish, or English. In linguistics, these concepts are distinct, and this distinction is significant. As we have seen, language is the universal and innate faculty of communication unique to human beings. On the other hand, a language is a system of signs, or to put it simply, words and rules shared by a given community, and this is the product of this faculty. Broadly speaking, a language is the result of this faculty of language manifested in the real world. Our capacity for language enables us to have different languages and to create new ones. Finally, speech, or parole according to Saussure, is the personal and individual use that each speaker makes of their language. Think of dialects or slang, or even the differences between the way you speak and the way your parents or grandparents speak. To summarize, language is the faculty to create and use languages. Languages which are themselves used differently by the various people who speak them, which embodies the concept of parole or speech.